Oh, dearie me. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's well. My God, where do we begin with this one? I think we better get the good news out of the way first, since we're all in need of a good dopamine hit at this point. So, digital ID has been scrapped. Yes, Keir the traitor Starmer, a man with more U-turns than a Tesco's car park. He's now had to scrap his idea of mandatory digital IDs to apparently prove that you are eligible to work in the UK. You know, there's a virtual fucking document that already does that. Do you know what it's called? It's called a passport. This passport effectively showed them all of the critical details they need to see. What your mugshot looks like, what your passport number is, whether you're eligible, your age, anything that essentially says this person is eligible to work in the UK. That book did just that. Back in my old days, I used to carry that around. This little book could sit in your pocket very, very easily. And you could basically pull it out and say, look at this, I'm eligible to work here. Realising this among criticism of the whole idea, I guess, Keir the traitor Starmer has had to pull it. And he must be absolutely gutted. I can't think of a guy that deserves it more than this. But the funny thing is, I have a sneaky suspicion this digital ID bullshit would have been used to basically allow people who are invading this country to have one of these and effectively invalidate the argument of, well, he's not an English citizen. Because then they could just say, oh, look, here's my digital ID. That means I'm British. Yeah, fuck you. But yes, a huge victory as far as Keir the traitor Starmer's idealistic goals are concerned. He won't be having digital IDs on the table anymore. The only way we're going to see digital IDs now is if they're on a coaster where we can smack our beers on. But this wasn't possible just because I said so or somebody else said so. It's because millions of people turned out and protested against Keir the traitor Starmer in Keir the traitor Starmer masks, and millions of people signed petitions to scrap the digital ID. And I can safely say I was one of those people who signed up for that petition. You said that explains why the government website went down. Shut up, you! No, it didn't! I'm not that bad! And besides, if I did, I'd be in fucking jail right now for a DDoS attack. Now, anybody could even do that. I don't think even Queso could do that, quite frankly. Now that 3-minute dopamine session is over, it's time to get back to the nitty-gritty. Nan's still looking for the needles that I stole from her. Anyway, we need to talk about Keir the traitor Starmer some more, because it seems that this criticism of sending us off to war with Russia and all of his other policies that he's been talking about and trying to avoid criticism and responsibility, well, it's not got him a lot of favour with the Speaker, has it, in the Houses of Treachery? I mean Parliament. Or maybe I was right first time. Because as much as I don't like Kemi down Badnock, I tell you what, she makes a very valid fucking point against Keir the traitor Starmer that he never consulted MPs and what have you of some of the policies that he's trying to implement. Of course, Starmer, being the slippery shit weasel that he is, basically can't hold himself together, and he looks like he could fall down like a fucking Jenga tower at this point. His face really did paint a picture, didn't it? And you don't need to be Picasso to figure that one out. His face was screaming, they're holding me to account here. They're expecting me to take responsibility. Yes, Keir the traitor Starmer, it's called being the fucking Prime Minister, not the primordial fuck-up. Let's face it, we all know which one you're better at. Being between trying to conscript us off to fight Russia, the fact that you took the side of a murdering scumbag in the Southport riots, the fact that you wanted to bring in digital IDs, and the fact that you continue to effectively go against the very people that as Prime Minister you're supposed to be serving. Is it any wonder that you're getting absolutely char-grilled over a fire? It's like if I got into power, if perish the thought I became the bloody Prime Minister, Yeah, prime rib more like. Anyway, it's like if I went into the job as Prime Minister and I was making cock-ups, I would expect to be absolutely char-grilled. Forget medium rare, this one's looking like well fucking done. I think it's safe to say a lot of us have taken more responsibility over these last 6 to 12 months or what have you than you've ever done, Keir the Traitor Starmer, in your entire life. And as the old saying goes, if you can't stand the heat, get the fuck out the kitchen. But I don't want to focus too much on Keir the Traitor Starmer, as that would be too easy. It's obviously very, very easy for us Indigenous people to rip Keir the Traitor Starmer a new arsehole, as there's so much to rip apart, you might as well be holding a stack of A3s. It's not so much a matter of what has he fucked up, it's a matter of what he hasn't fucked up. But I digress. Let's talk reform now. Or should I call them the reformians? I'm sure a lot of people remember Howard Cox. He ended up leaving the Reformian Party because he had principles. He supported Tommy Robinson, and of course Richard Tice absolutely lambasted him for it. This is the same Richard Tice, who went out of his way to slander you and me as that lot. He effectively implied that we were all nothing more than a bunch of thugs, that we basically should not even have a single bit of time to actually make our point. But I am willing to go as far as saying Richard Tice is just as much of an odious little cockroach as Starmer is at this point. But it's no surprise that he and of course Nigel Farage, or as I call him, Nigel Al-Faraji, are basically opposed to the idea of supporting Tommy Robinson, because after all, the Reformian Party is controlled opposition. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me. It doesn't suit the narrative. There are a lot of people who will sit here and they will sing high praise to the messiah that is Nigel Al-Faraji, even though this wanker has categorically slandered Tommy in a false manner by calling him a wife beater, even though he knew full well that Tommy had never committed a single crime against a woman, that he had never assaulted his wife, and had only ever had assault charges effectively against men who either attacked him first or were harassing his wife in the case of the off-duty copper. Now here's the thing. Richard Tice and Nigel Al-Faraji, they have had every chance to apologise for their slanderous remarks, their defamation, if you will. Something that Nigel Al-Faraji was very eager to sue people over. He especially wanted to sue people like Peter Mandelson after he called him a T on live TV. I wonder how he'd feel being called a television. Anyway, he called Nigel a T-wrist, and obviously Nigel, understandably, did not take too kindly to it. I'm not saying he should have taken it kindly. What I'm saying is that he can't expect people to look the other way if he starts slandering other people, since he has effectively thrown down the gauntlet and said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Now, when I voted reform back then, I said I did it in good faith because Tommy basically said, let's vote reform, let's get them power, after they gave the nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of shit, saying that they would basically promote our movement, unite the kingdom and what have you. And then look how they treated us. They condemned us. They slandered us. They called out Tommy Robinson, or if you want to be one of those lefty shills, called him Stephen Yaxley Lennon. Now, I'm not saying you have to like Tommy Robinson, but what I am going to say is that you should make sure you do your own bloody research and make sure that you have your facts in check before you go and make slanderous remarks like Tommy's a wife beater or a woman beater. But what this really boils down to is, because I've kind of skimmed off a bit, I've gone off on a tangent, is Richard Tice. There was some secret texts that Dan Wooden has finally put out on Outspoken, which basically shows him messaging Howard Cox saying that he is disappointed that he's basically a Tommy Robinson supporter and that there are people who want him out of the Reform Party, and effectively ended it with the choice words of, "You made your choice and it was the wrong one." Immediately assuming that he's some higher fucking authority. Richard Tice, you are no high authority. You're a rich, pompous prick who's had things easy. That's who you are.
Yeah, you too. Appreciate it.
So, the way I look at it, Richard, you like to sit there and you love to slander people, just like Nigel Al-Faraji. I know that you're not exactly his son, but there is an old saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Oh, not a burger in my case. Shut it, for fuck's sake. I'm not that bad, I keep telling you. Oh dear, oh dear. But anyway, it does seem like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, since you've basically jumped on the same bandwagon that Nigel Al-Faraji is. You're very quick to slander us, you're very quick to slander Tommy Robinson, when he isn't even allowed to go on mainstream media to actually state his case. Although, devil's advocate, I will say this, because he actually spoke to me personally on Minect. He said that he basically fuck the media because they will never give you a fair trial. And he is quite right. They never will. They will look to castrate you the first chance they get. That's probably the primary reason why Tommy Robinson hasn't gone on mainstream media. But I guarantee you, if he did, every fucking wanker on those shows would have been wiped out. Wiped out of that fucking place. I promise you that. Every single person that you can think of who has slandered Tommy, if he was allowed on air, he would destroy them. Just like that. Graham Moore. Piers Morgan, Jeremy Kyle, if he hates them. I don't know if he does, I'm just saying that out of speculation. And of course, many, many others in the mainstream media we already know about. So of course, Richard Tice and Nigel Al-Faraji, who Nigel was part of GB News, they don't want to give Tommy the chance to defend himself, as obviously it would make the whole mainstream media, the entire government, look stupid. And obviously they can't have that now, because it would go against their brainwashing narrative, including that Pathways game that I mentioned in the last video. You know what I will agree with for some of these people? Starmer's not going to last into 2027. Some people are even saying he's got until like May. Yeah, 4 months. That must hurt for Starmer to realise that his time is coming to an end. That he's got no chance of becoming Prime Minister. And it's not because of a left or right-wing bias. He is Britain, or the United Kingdom's most hated Prime Minister. He has been the most competent Prime Minister that we in the United Kingdom have ever had in our entire history. He actually has a lower approval rating than the jurors of Maduro. Or Venezuela, or whatever. You know what I mean. Basically, this man is even less popular than, obviously, the traitors in Venezuela. That's got to say something, especially when you're sitting on a minus 56 approval rating. Like, Reform don't really need to do too much to try and get into power, as Keir the traitor Starmer is effectively self-destructing his own party, quite frankly. I've said it before and I'll say it again. He's got two hopes of getting back in power. No Hope and Bob Hope. And I think Bob Hope is already occupied. But I would warn against voting for Reform, because it's very clear from those texts that Richard Tice is one of those maligned, toffee-nosed wankers who effectively looks down upon us. Reform is effectively, they're the Tories 2.0. I've said this many times. They are a teal Trojan horse, and with none of the good stuff inside. After all, these people are bringing in very, very questionable people. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but they most recently brought in the guy who was effectively the director of managing this COVID outbreak that came onto us. They're willing to take them they're willing to take Bonnie Blue, but they're not willing to take Tommy Robinson. I mean, do I even need to say make it make sense? But they're not willing to take a person who has been calling out the fundamental problems with this country, has been calling out the death cult that is Islam, and they're not willing to take in someone who is effectively seen as a hero to the United Kingdom, but they're more than willing to take in a person who effectively decided to tell us how we manage COVID, or rather they manage us during COVID, locking us down, anti-social distancing, face nappies that never worked, etc., etc. And they're also willing to accept a woman who has seen more use than a toilet roll. Now, I'm no genius. I'm not sitting here with a 400 IQ brain here. I barely have 2 brain cells. But surely, if I was looking at that and seeing on the one side someone who is seen as a national hero, and on the other side I see one of the bastards who knew that COVID was basically a fucking scam, and yet decided to basically engineer this and make it so that we had to spend our Christmases at home and that we had to social distance and all that nonsense, and get your 3rd and 4th jab that didn't work in most cases, except for maybe the elderly and the infirm who genuinely need it. And also a woman who's literally seen more use than a toilet roll. But I would be questioning my values. And what's sad is we have very intelligent people who clearly know what they're talking about, who clearly do their research, and who clearly have a finger on the pulse, and yet they've fallen victim to what I'm going to call the reformian mind virus. It's effectively Farage's way, or it's no way. Even though they know full well what he's done to Tommy is disgusting. The libelous slander and the disrespect towards the people, and yet people like June Slater are more than willing to say we must all get behind reform, and all the other doomsayers and other reformians saying, oh, but if we don't vote reform, we will split the vote. Bullshit. You know that's bullshit, because at the end of the day, you have full control of who you vote for. You know full well what Nigel Al-Faraji has done, what Richard Tice has done, what the Reform Party has done, and you know some of the questionable people, put your dentures back in, questionable people you are bringing in, but you choose to go with them anyway. At this point, it's no longer the blind shepherd leading the blind. That's you following the blind people off a cliff, quite frankly. I know you're not going to like me saying that, June Slater, and a lot of your fans and the other reformians are not going to like me saying that. But here's the thing about me, and the rest of you can say it with me. I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm going to say it exactly how it is, and I'll do my best not to bullshit you. I've said this many, many times. These are my core beliefs. I fundamentally believe that reform are controlled opposition. I fundamentally believe that Nigel Al-Faraji is merely there to act as effectively the mask of deception, if you will. The sad truth is, though, I would have a lot more respect for Farage and Tice and all the other reformians if they just owned what they did, took some accountability, take some bloody responsibility. Even I'm more capable of taking bloody responsibility. I've accepted I've had a fucking gambling problem, for Christ's sake, and a very big one at that. And yet I've had the guts to actually take actions to change that. What have you done, Richard Tice? What have you done, Nigel Farage, to take responsibility for your actions? I'm waiting. Of course, this isn't about me. This isn't about my problems. This is about the Reform Party now They need to own up to their mistakes and realise what they're doing is not only casting out some of their own members, it's also alienating a lot of the public as they're starting to see through this facade. Remember, Nigel Farage, when he achieved Brexit, he could have been literally the biggest figurehead as far as Brexit is concerned. But what did he do? He turned tail. He ran. That's not the actions of a leader. That's the actions of a coward. He could have very easily commandeered the HMS Brexit. Instead, we got a Ramona who turned Brexit into an absolute shit show. And I reckon he would have gotten to power if he was still part of UKIP and actually stood by his guns. Now, instead, we live in a two-tier policing society. Because that's what it boils down to now. He would have gathered so much support if he'd actually stayed on, actually held the Tories to account, and actually forced them to effectively leave the EU without any conditions, without any possibility of Keir the traitor Starmer getting us back in, without any possibility of the EU trying to get a Farage clause against us. That's the thing. Keir the traitor Starmer is obviously the least popular Prime Minister we've ever had. But Nigel, you've had every opportunity given to you on a fucking golden platter, and yet you've thrown it away every single time, without fail. Well, the platter may be gold, but I can tell a 24-carat coward when I see one. Because let's face it, you and Richard Tice wouldn't dare fucking say half the shit you're saying to us right now if he was in front of you. Your arseholes would pucker up faster than a fucking snare drum. But just like the oligarchy, spineless, cowards, only in it for power and money, especially you, Farage. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to get into one of your conferences and show you up for what you really fucking are. Because as I said, a leader does not run. A leader takes the fucking initiative. He steps up to the plate and he actually fucking delivers. I'm no politician. I know I can speak like one, but at least I don't have the bullshit of one. And the way I look at you, Farage, you're not a respectable leader. As I said, you're not really a leader, to be brutally honest. You're a coward. Only willing to criticise other people when it comes down to them not being able to defend themselves. Yeah, really brave, Farage. And you as well, Richard Tice. Because don't think I've forgotten about you. All the people that you're willing to have in your party, including Islamic people, who at best are questionable, means that your party is definitely compromised, bare minimum. After all, wasn't it Zia Yusuf, or again, maybe I was right first time, who basically put a massive donation in and then tries to run your party like a dictator, also kicked out Rupert Lowe on false charges of threatening him, all on the back of a bullying case. Yeah, don't think I've forgotten about that either. There's not a lot of stuff I do forget. And here's the thing. You want to sit there, Farage, and you want to criticise Tommy Robinson? Take a look in the fucking mirror. Because you may find what you look at is just as scary as the man you condemn.